After years of living outside, a Portland woman now has a roof over her head.
When I hear noises now outside, I ain't worried about jumping up to go out and what's going on, you know?
But transitioning into housing is not the end of the story.
People are coming off the streets with a lot of trauma, a lot of addiction issues, and a lot of severe mental health.
Plus,
oh my God, the drug paraphernalia that's being passed out is just the most stupid thing in the whole world.
Multnomah County is pressing pause on a plan to hand out drug supplies, but we found out other places have been handing them out for years.
The critics might see the work that you're doing as enabling this addiction crisis. We hear the enabling argument a lot.
And your thoughts on the new rules around who could be admitted to the Oregon State Hospital after they've been accused of a crime, and how the state of Washington is preparing to dole out tens of millions of dollars for a state hospital issue of its own. Here's the story. I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. We're going to start tonight with a story we've been following for months and one that many of you have been asking about. Back in November, our Blair Best worked with an outreach team to get a chronically homeless woman off the street into housing. Well, it's been 7 months now since Tara was handed a key to her own apartment, and Blair checked in to see how she's been doing as she tries to move forward and leave life on the street behind.
Hey, Cliff! I need your help!
The transition Tara Pietromonaco has gone through is life-changing, to say the least.
It's not cold. So it makes it easier to be able to like move around and stuff.
For the first time in years, she's living indoors.
When I hear noises now outside, I ain't worried about jumping up to go out and what's going on, you know? Or like who's out there or anything like that.
Anxieties that became second nature to her while living in this trailer on Northeast 33rd Drive.
Now I look at it, it's like, thank God I'm not here anymore. I just don't know if I would have been able to live much longer out there. I mean, I was getting to the point where I was on my breaking point. I was really on that breaking edge, ready to just like fall off of it.
We caught her just in time.
We might be able to get you into a place, like a studio apartment kind of situation.
7 months ago, we connected her with an outreach team. They moved her into this Southeast Portland apartment building made for homeless people.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful mostly because of you. Because if it weren't for you, I probably wouldn't be here right now. You know, I like you. You're like a friend to me. You're not just a news person to me, so.
We met Tara about a year ago. She collected just about everything and was good at keeping herself busy.
Hey, Cliff, we need to push this car over there.
So this makes sense.
Right now, I have my rooms like this. I've got this here that's gonna go over to this wall, and I have a dresser that's down in here.
To some, it's chaos. To her, it's an attempt at finding security.
And then I'm gonna take these crates and I'm gonna screw them all together. This room was actually cleaner a couple days ago. I think the only downfall about being here, being indoors, is I've lost my vehicles and I lost a lot of my things that were important to me, you know, that cost a lot of money when I was out there, you know.
She often goes back to the camp to check on her brother, who still lives there.
Bro, I'm not leaving you.
I do worry about him because he doesn't belong out there either.
How's it going?
This is something Gurney Kimberly, who works with Tara, says is common.
Tara was, I think, a really active member in her community down there, and I think she was valued.
Like many homeless nonprofits, Join, where Kimberly works, is severely understaffed.
This is not the kind of job you clock in and clock out of. I mean, this job you take home with you, and you go to sleep with it and you wake up with it.
He says Tara's caseworker has at least 60 other clients just like her.
People are coming off the streets with a lot of trauma, a lot of addiction issues, and a lot of severe mental health. And if we're not realistic about that and willing to put the time and money into, and I mean serious time, not just a year, not just 6 months, but actual time up to 3 to 5 years into working with somebody, then we're out of touch with reality.
So getting back on her feet will take a lot of work from Tara, too.
I don't even know where to begin on that, you know? It's a big step. And I have a hard time with change.
So Blair, great story. And what was it like for her when she literally moved off the street?
Yeah, so it was a pretty hard transition, and I think that's really the point that this story is trying to make, is that it's not easy to come off the streets, and it's not a quick fix. So originally, when she moved into that apartment building, she was sick for a while. She suffered a lot of health issues, and she was in and out of the hospital for quite some time.
Is that just from the maladies of being out on the street and not
I
taking care of her
imagine.
health?
I mean, I didn't ask her specifically what she went through. She has some mobility disabilities. She had to move to the bottom floor. Just things like that.
And then she had trouble paying her rent, I understand.
She did, yeah. She lives off of Social Security.
So not a lot of money, probably.
Yep, and she pays about half of that towards rent at that apartment building. And, she struggled to pay rent for a while.
And probably because also she's not used to that.
100%.
Right? It's a whole new system to try and learn.
But it's interesting because the property management that oversees her building, they do what's called a compassionate property management, where they take issues like that and they don't use it as an excuse to evict someone and put her back out on the side of the street. They've tried working with her, and I've heard that it's gotten better, and she's been paying her rent on time.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, it's nice to hear.
And I understand there's also a problem because she likes to collect cars.
She does, yes. Tara is a mechanic, if you will.
Okay, good for her.
She has a passion for cars, for working on things, and she did bring some of those to the neighborhood that she moved into. It did cause some issues. People ultimately towed her vehicles. That was really hard on her.
That's going to happen.
I mean, that was her identity out on Northeast 33rd, were her cars, her things.
She was the lady who had all the cars.
She was, and she worked on other people's cars as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, she can still do that, not have them parked all over the neighborhood,
Which,
I guess.
yeah, she doesn't anymore. But
it's been interesting to me how much people in our audience have cared about her. We're getting emails all the time. In fact, we just got one from you yesterday. And I know you had a chance to talk to Tara about that.
I did. I mean, I even get emails as well. And so I told Tara about that. And here's what she had to say.
So I kind of wanted to tell you, ever since that story aired, we get emails probably every week asking about you. There's a whole community of people out there.
I went to stores, and this lady's like, "Aren't you that lady girl that was on the TV?" I said, "Nope, that wasn't me. Nope." And she goes, "Yeah, I know it was you." I'm like, "No, it must have been my twin or something."
What do you think about that? I mean, there's a whole community out there rooting for you and constantly asking me, how's Tara doing? What is she doing now?
What am I doing now? I sit in my room a lot. I sit in my room a lot and think.
So good to hear from her, and I guess it would feel so good to know that people that you don't know care about you.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that she knew she had this community rooting for her.
Yeah, and it's also an example that it takes more than 4 walls and a roof to get somebody stable in housing.
Very much so.
Yeah, thanks for the story, Blair. Great update. And now for an update on a story that had you all kind of fired up yesterday. Multnomah County's plan to hand out smoking supplies like tin foil and straws for fentanyl users. As we told you yesterday, the county has suspended its plan, but our team discovered that these smoking supplies, well, they've been handed out by other organizations for decades now on Portland streets, and they have no plan to stop anytime soon. Some housing programs, like the one at Central City Concern, hand out smoking supplies to those who live there. But beyond that organization, there are other places all across the city handing out pipes and foil. That includes a group called Outside In, which has a needle exchange program in Southwest Portland. They also give out smoking supplies, and they've done that for more than 30 years. They tell us it's an effort to prevent the spread of disease that can come from sharing drug supplies and to build relationships with people on the streets.
Our whole goal is to engage with the community, bring people in, provide them a safe space to ask questions, to learn about drug use, learn about options for not using drugs, and have the tools that they need to stay healthy and safe. And so the longer we can keep people smoking, the safer they're going to be. We know that injecting drugs is much more dangerous than smoking them.
A lot of critics might see the work that you're doing as enabling this addiction crisis.
We hear the enabling argument a lot. You know, we enable people to be as healthy as possible with wherever they are in their addiction. We enable people to stay alive.
Even though the county's plan to give out the supplies was suspended yesterday afternoon, you still filled our inbox and voicemail with your thoughts on the program. The majority of you felt a little bit like this.
Oh my God. A drug paraphernalia that's being passed out is just the most stupid thing in the whole world. Why don't we buy it for them? Why don't we buy the drugs and then hand them the Narcan, then the drugs and the supplies to help them take the drugs? You know, that would be just what our tax dollars should pay for. As long as we're paying for everything else, why not hand them the drugs? My blood pressure goes up thinking about this.
I think a lot of people felt the same way. Jan wrote to us and said, it is insidious the amount of money spent on supporting drug use, allowing drug use, and eliminating consequences for drug use. At what point does the pendulum start to swing into reality? And Helen brings up a great point in this email she sent to us. Once again, it is appalling to see the lack of communication between the Multnomah County Board of Commissioners, the Multnomah Health Department, and Portland City Hall. Why are they doing risk reduction without having the facilities to get these drug users into behavior health treatment? Lipstick on the pig. But amid all the comments against the plan to give out smoking supplies, there are a few of you who think it is a good idea.
Wanting to know why Ted Wheeler doesn't understand the science behind harm reduction. It does not increase drug use. This is a good program by Multnomah County. It needs to be implemented. It saves lives.
And Cindy wrote in, yep, it sounds bad to give out foil and pipes. Why are they doing it? These are smart, experienced professionals at the county. I'm thinking they want to find a way to keep the door open to users, a way to connect, show humanity, and offer a way out when users are ready. Yesterday, Multnomah County Chair Jessica Vega Peterson said the county's program is suspended pending further analysis. We will keep you posted if the idea makes a comeback. And here's my take on this. There is a big difference between harm reduction and harm facilitation. And in my opinion, this county idea has veered well over the line into facilitation. It's a terrible idea, in my opinion, for many reasons, including the fact that it invites ridicule for legitimate harm reduction strategies. And there are some. The classic harm reduction approach is giving people addicted to heroin clean needles. The National Institute on Drug Abuse, which is part of the federal government, reports that nearly 30 years of research shows that needle exchange programs that are linked to other things like infectious disease care and substance use treatment, well, those programs work. And those programs are effective and cost-saving tools that can prevent HIV and high-risk injection behaviors amongst the people using drugs. And if most people using fentanyl injected it into their bodies, you might be able to make a good argument that giving them clean needles is a good idea. But here's the thing. Most people do not inject fentanyl. And the county was not giving those users clean needle because they didn't want them, because they don't use them. They don't need them. They swallow fentanyl, or in pill form, or they snort it through their nose, or they smoke it and inhale it. So the Multnomah County Health Department decided that they should give out supplies for that. The rationale appears to be, let's give out fresh foil for users to smoke the fentanyl with and straws to inhale the smoke, and maybe as word gets out and people come to us for supplies, we can talk to them about their drug use. Or not. Let's take that logic and apply it somewhere else. And yes, this is going to be, I'll admit on the front end, it's going to be extreme, outrageous, ridiculous, because I can. But it's also to make the point of where this thinking can lead you. Let's talk about teen drinking. It's a big problem. But you know what? Kids are going to drink alcohol no matter what. So instead of telling them not to drink, using the county's logic, we should actually stock the vending machines in their school hallways with nice cold beer and other alcohol so that at least they can get good supplies and we can monitor that. We could also have boxes with bottle openers labeled with the high school mascot so that the kids won't hurt their hands when they're opening the bottles. And as they're grabbing for that free beer, we could mention to them that it's a bad idea. And maybe they'd listen. Or not. It all sounds kind of silly, I think, when you say it out loud, doesn't it? For now, the Multnomah County Health Department has put the brakes on handing out fentanyl use products. Hopefully it will stay that way. Portland police are already investigating 137 suspected overdose deaths in the city this year. We don't need to make it easier to overdose. We don't need any more overdoses. That's my opinion anyway. You don't have to agree, won't hurt my feelings, but I would like you to communicate. What's your take? Send me an email, will you? The address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Coming up next on The Story, a federal judge ordered big changes when it comes to who can go to the Oregon State Hospital for mental health treatment. And there's new drama with the Washington State Mental Health Hospital, dealing with similar issues, but in the Evergreen State, fines have been adding up quickly. And now a judge says the bill is due, and it's big. We'll explain when The Story returns. Last night's big story was about the Oregon State Hospital in Salem and how new rules are now in place when it comes to who can be admitted there. In recent years, there's been a huge increase in the number of aid and assist patients receiving treatment there. Those are people with a mental illness who've been accused of a crime and are awaiting trial, but are not able to aid and assist in their own defense. As more and more of those folks are waiting to get into an open bed at the hospital, they're often left waiting in jail cells. A series of court rulings say those defendants can only be held in those cells for 7 days before getting treatment at the state hospital. But right now, the average wait is over 2 weeks. At one point, it was over a month. So the battle between getting people in and out of there faster while trying to make sure it's safe for them to be in the community they came from has been ongoing for quite some time. And our story last night detailed the latest changes. The new rules allow for more notice when someone is being released from the state hospital. It was 30 days, now it's 60. The rules also allow the DAs to ask that the patient be held longer than previous stipulations, in some cases up to 3 years. And it limits who can be sent to the state hospital. People charged with non-person misdemeanors or misdemeanor crimes that were not against a human being, well, they're not going to be admitted, and they have to be treated in their local community. We asked for your thoughts on the changes, and several of you pointed back to what you see as the root of the problem that began back in the 1980s. Jim wrote to us to say those of us over 70 can look into the Wayback Machine and remember the darling of the Republican Party, Ronald Reagan, who defunded public mental health support in the 80s, and the problem has grown ever since. What goes around comes around, and often comes back to bite us. We even heard from a viewer named Joanne who says she used to work inside the mental health facility herself.
We were hamstrung on a lot of things. At a certain point, if there's no judge keeping someone in, we had to let them out as long as they had a plan, whether they were better or not. Unless there was some kind of legal thing to keep them in, if they had a plan, I'm going to go eat at this food kitchen, and I'm going to sleep over there on the street, and I'm going to get my mail here, they could go because we couldn't hold them. I believe that our laws that we have, which were well-intentioned, need to be worked over, and we need way more mental health because a lot of people out there used to be in the mental health facilities, and they're now out there.
And we do see them. The people I spoke with for our story say there does indeed need to be more places for people with serious mental illness, both at the state level and the local level within our communities. And if you think the state hospital issue is unique to Oregon, oh, no. Think again. Up next on the story, the problem is arguably worse in the great state of Washington, and fines have been racking up against the state for not fixing it. And now a judge has ruled the state has to pay up. And we're talking tens of millions of dollars. We'll get into the details when the story returns.
Coming up at 6:30, an apology from a Portland police officer who hit a photographer in the head with his baton during the 2020 protests. What he said to the victim. Plus, a new lawsuit claims a former Portland Antifa activist was wrongfully killed by U.S. Marshals Task Force. And residents of a Clark County mobile home park for seniors are facing a 52% rent hike. Their reaction and why the park's new landlord says the rent is going up. That's at 6:30.
Heads up, all you folks who live in Southwest Washington. Tonight, the state of Washington is preparing to dole out $100 million in fines for leaving mentally ill defendants in jail, often for months on end. A federal judge says it's the state's fault for not preparing for an increase in these kinds of defendants, and now it's time to pay up. So how did it get to this point? Susanna Frame from our sister station King 5 in Seattle has the story.
The court, I think, has said, state, you have not done enough and you need to do better. I think the excuses are over.
Plaintiff attorneys say the latest court ruling should help mentally ill inmates stuck in jail, people whose civil rights are being violated by the state of Washington, now found again to be in contempt of court orders.
What happens in jail is people get worse. They get sicker. They get so sick that they never get back to the baseline they were when they came into jail to begin with.
And you think this contempt finding will hopefully address those very serious needs?
Absolutely.
The problem of leaving sick people in jail, often in solitary confinement, has dragged on for years. In 2015, 8 years ago, federal judge Marsha Peckman ruled the state is violating the constitutional rights of some of its most vulnerable citizens, that jails are not hospitals, and the mentally ill are being warehoused while they wait for services. Peckman ordered DSHS to stick to a timeline. After a judge orders treatment, they've got 7 days to get the patient to the hospital. But a King 5 investigation found over the last 6 months, some people were waiting for a year.
I have anxiety.
The state says the waits got so long because of COVID, staffing shortages, and a skyrocketing increase in demand. In her new ruling, Judge Peckman said, those are excuses, that the problem is DSHS's own lack of foresight, creativity, planning, and a timely response to a crisis of its own making.
Scathing. That was Susanna Frame reporting. The $100 million fine will most likely be spent on improving services for people with serious mental illness, including diversion programs designed to keep people from entering the criminal justice system in the first place. And that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. But remember, the story, our collective story, well, that never ends. Stick around now for the news at 6:30, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow night.